What's going on, everybody? This is Maximilian, and yes, it has been an eternity since I put up a video. I sincerely apologize, but life has been catching up to me, and as a result, I've been incredibly busy. So, I put up a video of me level grinding because apparently you guys wanted to see it, and really there's not much more I can put up right now because I'm kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, because right now I would love to fight Claire, I really would, but Pokemon just aren't there yet, and I really need to get this Eevee up to speed, especially since she's going to be in the Elite Four party, or rather, I guess it's a he. Yeah, that Eevee's definitely a he. We need to get him up to speed for the Elite Four because we need an Umbreon really bad, because you guys want to see an Umbreon, so got to get us an Umbreon, and the only way to do that is to make this thing happy. Now, I wanted to go over that because there's a little bit of things you have to take into account in order to get a Pokemon to be happier, I guess, and essentially make it evolve. So, here's a couple of things I found out while I was researching how to basically most effectively evolve an Eevee into either an Umbreon or Espeon, depending on which one you prefer. However, since we're going for Umbreon, I'm going to go ahead and divert all of the information towards getting an Umbreon. You basically just have to revert to daytime versus nighttime if you want an Espeon. The other ones, you just still evolve through stones. Really easy, and they don't require any of the strenuous work like this at all, fighting Golbats and such. But, anywho, here we go. So, basically, Eevee and every other Pokemon in this game for that matter has a hidden stat called Happiness. This stat can be of any value between 0 and 255. Like most other hex values in this Pokemon game, it ranges from those two values. By default, most Pokemon start at 100, I believe, and I'm pretty sure this Eevee starts at 100 when you get it. Now, there is a woman in Goldenrod City who will rate your Pokemon and how much they love you by saying like one of 5 different phrases. Like she'll say like, you need to spend more time with your Pokemon. I get the feeling it doesn't quite trust you. She'll say something like, I get the feeling it really trusts you, or just it's quite cute. Something like that. She'll say random phrases, and basically that'll indicate in what range that happiness value is for your Pokemon. I can't remember off the top of my head the exact ranges for the values, but basically it's quite cute is the most common because it's the median. I think it's between 100 and 200, and it's basically mediocre for your Pokemon to be in that range. It's not really going to get you anywhere, especially if you want to evolve this Eevee. So what your goal is to be able to get the Eevee's happiness value, I think, to at least 250. I'm pretty sure that's what it is in order for happiness evolutions, and that's the same thing with things like Togepi and Golbat and other various Pokemon in the game that require happiness evolutions. Well, I'm not even gonna get into that. It's just gonna be way too complicated to try and list all of them. So I'm just gonna stick with Eevee. So, Eevee, you can make Eevee happy at any point during the day or night. It doesn't matter when you actually make Eevee happy. The only thing that matters is when it grows a level. Because what happens is, for happiness Pokemon, for happiness evolution Pokemon that is, every time they grow a level, their happiness is checked. And if it meets the requirement, the minimum requirement, then it will evolve. However, getting it to that requirement involves quite a bit of doing random things. Level grinding it, making it grow levels, fighting it in battles can increase its happiness stat, although I believe that only works if it actually grows a level during battle, otherwise nothing really happens. If you use it during, I guess, key battles, like gym battles, your rival, people like that, you get more points towards happiness as opposed to just growing levels in random wild battles like what I'm doing here. Giving it nutrients like carbos, iron, and calcium, and things like that will increase its happiness, but it will only do so depending on which range it's in. Obviously, these things that you do will increase its happiness more if its happiness stat is lower. So as you get closer and closer to actually achieving maximum happiness, everything that you do for it affects its happiness less. I think that includes the negative ways as well, because there are a couple of things which will decrease its happiness. One of the most obvious ones is letting it faint in a battle. You don't ever want to do that. Although I don't think it takes away too many points. I think it's just 1 happiness point if you let it faint in a battle. You absolutely do not want to feed it herbs or any kind of plants, anything like that. I think berries are okay, but other than berries, you don't want to do anything else because it'll just drastically lower happiness. I'm not entirely sure if those herbs are available in Gen 2. They may just be Gen 4, I'm not entirely sure. But don't feed it any plants besides berries, because it's kind of the same thing with Pokemon in real life. how you always hated vegetables as a kid. Well, the Pokemon are basically the same way. You give them vegetables and they're not going to love you for it. They get happiness points when they grow levels in battle. They don't get happiness points from holding an item. I think that's one of the most common rumors that's out there. It doesn't actually do anything if your Pokemon is holding an item, even when you're fighting, so you don't really need to worry about that. I am not entirely sure if there's anything else that'll directly affect the happiness aside from those two and haircuts. I think haircuts is the last thing that'll actually directly affect happiness. Now, the weird thing is sometimes they're in the shop, sometimes they're not. And half the time it's the younger brother, half the time it's the older brother. They vary on the amount of points they give, and there's a couple of ways to do this. I think the easiest way, or the best way, to get your Pokemon to level up faster in terms of happiness, is to always go see the younger brother, and I'll tell you why. Now, unfortunately, he wasn't here for some reason. I have no idea why, but for some reason it was Wednesday, yesterday when I was playing this, and then all of a sudden today on my emulator it's Monday. So this thing is just so screwed up right now. The clock is just not even close to being correct. Anyway, the younger haircut brother doesn't quite get your Pokemon as happy as often. You have very far less significant chance of actually getting your Pokemon's happiness. I guess, what's the word I'm looking for? Basically, he's kind of a greater risk, greater reward kind of thing, because the older brother is a lot more consistent. Although you don't get as many points for your Pokemon being happy, because there's 3 different results that can come about from a haircut. Your Pokemon can either be a little bit happier, it can be happy, or it can be delighted. Delighted's obviously the one you want to go for, but it doesn't come about very often. It can only come about every so often for the older brother, but it comes up much less often for the younger brother. Even the just is happy stat comes up much less for the younger brother. The younger brother does cost less, so I guess it's kind of a better investment, but you're most likely just going to hit the it looks a little happier stat than you will going to the older brother. So the point system works, I believe, as follows. If you go to the older brother and your Pokemon looks a little bit happier, you'll get an extra, I think, 1 point. I think it's 1 point regardless towards happiness if your Pokemon just looks a little happier. If it looks happy, the older brother gives 2 points, whereas the younger brother gives, I think, 4 points. I want to say that's right. I know the younger brother definitely gives more points for being just straight up happy, because it's much harder for the younger brother to do that. Now, if it's delighted, the older brother, I think, gives 5 points. However, the younger brother gives 10. Now, there is a way to cheat the system a little bit here, because it's just so highly unlikely that you'll actually get a haircut for once a day that'll be making your Pokemon delighted. And that'll take quite a few tries on your emulator, and trust me, I've tried this. I still have yet to get a delighted one. It's very, very infrequent with the younger brother. But since the younger brother is there on most nights, if you're going for an Umbreon, this will be a bit more convenient for you. Although technically it doesn't really matter, since you can do it either time. It only matters when you actually raise the Pokemon a level. So what you want to do is, if you want to kind of cheat the system, save your game right next to the haircut brother in the Goldenrod Underground. Then that way, after you have selected your Pokemon, you got your haircut, and you can see the message at the bottom of the screen saying your Pokemon either looks a little bit happier, is happy, or is delighted. You can choose whether or not you want to restart your game. Obviously, I would assume that if it's just a little bit happier, you're going to want to restart. If you're with the younger haircut brother, though, because the odds of you coming across a delighted Pokemon are so incredibly unlikely, I would just recommend that if you pull anything happy or better, that you just stick with it. Because it still gets you more points in the long run, and it's cheaper too, and you really don't want to have to go through resetting your emulator hundreds of times just to try and get 10 points for happiness. I know it does progress it quicker, but I mean, it's going to take time either way. Like, evolving Pokemon through happiness takes forever. Like, really forever. It's just so incredibly difficult and time consuming. I'm not entirely sure what possessed them to make the value requirements so high, but I don't know. I don't know what they were thinking. They must have been smoking something really funny when they put that dynamic in the game, because, man, it is tough. So I'm going to keep going through this and trying to get an Umbreon as fast as possible, although I can't really make any guarantees because I don't know exactly what the stat is at. There's no real way to check. your only indicator is just that broad spectrum that one random lady in goldenrod gives you, and really that isn't much help either. So I'm going to keep doing this, and as well as level grinding the rest of the team, and hopefully, sometime in the next day or two, I'll have the 8th gym for you. Until then, I'll see you later.